welcome to this little Zoom meetup. I'm super excited because I am related to this amazing person I'm going to introduce to you. But we're doing this video and this call because I don't know about you, but when I look out what's going on in the world, I have a lot of questions, and just the chaos and the disruption of our lives and everything that's happening. And one thing that I've always done, especially when that kind of stuff happens in my own personal life, is I contact my mom, Wendy Cicchetti. She is a world famous astrologer and an expert in this field. And I have invited her here, two of us together, to kind of give us a breakdown and the lowdown of what's actually happening energetically with the planets and astrologically that is impacting what's happening on the world right now, and to kind of give us a little bit more insight as to what's going on. And I think that when you're empowered and you have information and you don't feel so lost and so crazy and what's going on when you actually have some of these deeper answers. So I am going to let her take it away. So this is Wendy Cicchetti. If you don't know who she is, my mother. Many of you out there that are probably watching this probably have maybe had a reading with her, but if you haven't, she's also available for readings. So Mom, Wendy, take it away. Tell us what's up.
Okay, thanks, Misty. Okay. I get questions all the time from people, and I think it's good that we're doing this to answer a lot of the questions so that people understand the depth of what's happening. Okay. People thought, oh, so glad 2020 is over. No, we haven't even really begun in terms of the changes that are coming. And so what I want to do is talk about the astrological aspects, the cycles that are happening, and the cycles within cycles, okay? And the cycles are really important because they always set the stage for what's coming, okay? Now, I want to give you a brief astrology lesson so that you better understand. Okay, there are malefic planets and cycles, and there are benefic, meaning that they benefit you. Malefic is challenging, benefic is helpful. Okay, now the malefic planets are Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Those are the challenging ones. Okay. And then we have the benefic planets, the ones that benefit us. We have Jupiter, Venus, and the Sun. They're the great benefics that really help and help to ameliorate the difficulty with the malefic planets. And then we have two neutral planets. We have the Moon and Mercury. And these planets take on the energies of what's around them. Like we just had this full moon in Aquarius. So the moon takes on Aquarian energies for two and a half days, okay? The moon changes signs every 2.5 days, and then the moon's going to move into Pisces, and then we'll have Pisces energy for 2.5 days, and then Aries, and all the way around the zodiac every 2.5 days. So these cycles also deal with inner planets and outer planets. The inner planets are all the ones that you can see with the naked eye. Jupiter and Saturn, not Saturn, but Saturn is one. We're going to talk about Saturn in a minute. Jupiter and Venus and the Sun and the Moon and Mercury, all of these, they move really, really fast. And inner planets initiate things, they start things, but they don't complete them because they go so fast, right? They just initiate something. It's the outer planets that then come and solidify that has been initiated or started. The outer planets are all about change, pain, and it takes a long time. Okay, we as humans, we really don't learn much unless we're in pain, right? Discomfort. And when you are in pain, it's trying to get you attention. Pay attention. Okay, wake up. There are messages that are for you when there is pain and challenge around us, and that's what's going on, of course, all around the globe right now. So we have the inner and the outer planets. Now, Saturn is called the boundary planet because you can still see it with the naked eye, but it takes 2.5 years to go around the zodiac. And so all of the outer planets take a long, long time to where you get to Pluto, and that takes 20 years. No, excuse me, it's in a sign for 20 years, but it takes 250 years to go around the zodiac. So these outer planets are slow, and they're like laser beams, and they just work on us and work on us and work on us. Well, when you get two malefic planets next to each other, impacting each other, there's a lot of stuff that comes out. There's a lot of chaos and disruption. If there is a word for what's happening right now, it's disruption, right? We've found that. We're experiencing that. And so when we talk about Saturn, Saturn represents the old order, the old structure, okay? And it's everything about Saturn shrinks, okay? It's what's the right word? I can't think of it, but I'll come back to it. But everything about Saturn is challenging, work-related, structure, all of those things, the things that are old. And Uranus is completely different. Uranus is irrepressible changes, sudden and repetitive energies, always pushing the limits that leads to the new, the creativity, and freedom. So we have this horrible aspect, and it's a really, really stressful, difficult aspect where we're dealing with the old and trying to create the new. And Saturn is holding on. It does not want to give away its power. You know, Saturn represents big business, big corporation, big religion, big government, big money. Do those guys want to relinquish control? Hell no. And so you've got Uranus coming like this, you know, repetitive, sudden, explosive energies breaking up that structure that does not want to change. The only way that we are going to evolve is as a world is to break up all of that restrictive structure, and that's the other word for Saturn, restrictive. You have to break it up in order for us to evolve. Now, people say, well, you know, this COVID thing, it's come, you know, COVID is a thing, okay? And we have to deal with that thing, but we have to figure out how to deal with it according to how we feel is right for each one of us, okay? And this is where we have to pay attention, because the Saturnian principle is hold on tight. Don't give anything, okay? And that's what's happening also with all of the stuff going on with the COVID. The structure does not want to give in to what the people want. Okay, so now this is a time of testing and transition. There were 3 exact, and there's another one coming, 3 exact conjunctions or squares, excuse me, between Saturn and Uranus. We had one on February 17th. We had one on June 14th, and we have another one coming on December 24th. And their orb of influence, okay, for this whole year, this disruptive whole year, is going to continue into mid-2022. It's not just going to end from the last December 24th conjunction. I think it's interesting that it's happening on Christmas Eve. These, for the whole year, these planets have been in orb of influence of each other, okay? When we talk of the February, June, and December, that's when they're the strongest, but they're influencing each other clear into mid-2022, okay? So, all right. So that tells you what those it's the main cycle, okay? And I'm going to tell you more history about it towards the end of this, at what happened in the past when Uranus and Saturn were impacting each other in this way. It's a 44-year cycle, okay? This isn't an immediate thing. It takes a long time to get through it. And let me see. Okay, this is what I wanted. 44 years. And in that 44 years, what happens is you have a conjunction, and then you have a square, and then you have an opposition, then you have another square, and then you have another conjunction, and then the next cycle starts. So these are impacting the world. And we're in the cycle that started in 1988 and will go to 2032. So it takes a long time for things to change, doesn't it? Long time. It sets the stage, it creates lots of pain and disruption, and then the people have to stand up and buck the system in order to facilitate evolution and change. Okay, so now we're getting into what it means to us. And what does all this mean? Let's look at it. Let's look at the descriptions of what the energetic properties of this aspect is. Restrictions that become unbearable. Disruption. Great tension. Rebellion. Despair. Sudden desires to break free. Physical tensions may become quite intense, worsening medical conditions. Things may become hard to believe. Conflicts build. Polarization between the old and the new, trying to restore order. Hello. And of course, the last time, and we'll talk more about some of the issues of it, that this happened was during the Great Depression and the beginning of World War II. So we have history, we have empirical data of what happens every time these planets come together and impact each other, okay? So there are other cycles. And the next cycle that I want to talk about is Pluto in Capricorn. Now, back in December, Misty and I did a video, and we talked about all the aspects that were going on back then, okay, that were creating the chaos and what was going on the planet. And part of it was Saturn in Capricorn. We had Jupiter in Capricorn. We had also Saturn in Capricorn. So we had 3 planets in Capricorn. Now Saturn and Jupiter have moved on because they move more rapidly, but Pluto is still in Capricorn. Now what does that mean? Okay, Pluto is finishing, and it's going to be in Capricorn till 2024. Okay, and it's finishing up the destruction of the old. So reconstruction can take place. So Pluto's there just breaking up the cement. It's the death of the old order and the birth of the new. Now this happens every 250 years. And I think I mentioned back in that other video that 250 years ago, when Saturn was, or Pluto was in Capricorn, was during the time that we left England and started the United States. The colonies, okay? And the founders got tired of the taxation and the control, committed treason, okay, left England and came here to the Americas to start this country, all right? And it was an act of treason. The only time we can ever really, it seems like, get anything done, we have to buck the system in some way, right? Okay, so that's what happened back then, 250 years ago. Now look what's happening with Saturn, or excuse me, with Pluto in Capricorn today. We're talking about World War III. I mean, we're talking about the global control of the planet. Okay, so Pluto has got to break that up. Okay, Saturn is holding on. It's called crystallization. Doesn't want anything to change, but Pluto comes around and says, sorry, but no, you're going to change. So we have a lot yet to experience in terms of that aspect. Now, Saturn, let's see, I think, okay, that's going to be in Uranus in Taurus is the next one we're going to talk about. Sorry, my notes were a little confusing. And that's going to be into play until 2026. Now you have to understand about Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is not happy in Taurus at all. In fact, it's considered in its fall. In other words, Uranus can't function the way it needs to when it's in the sign of Taurus. Now, Taurus energy is placid, it's harmonizing, it's pretty, you know, it just likes takes care of everything and wants to fix stuff and be so nice. And Uranus doesn't give a crap about any of that. Uranus wants to get back to the lightning strikes, you know, wake us all up, you know, but it can't do that. It can't function in Taurus, okay? And so the fact that it's in its fall and it cannot function, what it deals with is financial crisis. Changes in banking and money. Back in 1934 to 1941, when Uranus was in Taurus, we left the gold standard, the banks closed, we had a huge, deep depression for like a decade. The worst that, you know, is in recorded history, it's my understanding. Also, our values change. Taurus is about our values. And our values are changing, okay? And what we have to do is prepare for huge changes with Uranus and Taurus. Unusual, upsetting, sudden, unexpected. Values of materialism are challenged, and this push to break free. That is what's going on right now with Uranus and Taurus. And it isn't pretty. We see it all around us, right? We have
everywhere.
Everything. All of our attitudes towards money and materialism. We see the old Saturn stuff over here, you know, with all of these multi-billionaires who aren't paying any taxes, you know, and who are making more and more and more even off the COVID, you know, they're billions and billions and billions, and they're out there saying, okay, well, let's take our money and go to space, and, you know, let's do all these fun things. We're dealing with sociopaths who have no empathy. People in the world are struggling, and these idiots are off satisfying their egos and making billions and billions and billions of more money. This is the dysfunction of Saturn, or excuse me, I don't know why I keep saying that, Uranus in Taurus. It is very financially dysfunctional. Okay.
Now, are there, like, clearly this isn't all great news. And I'm just wondering, is there more? Is there more aspects we need to know about?
Well, and this one, I think, based on what we see in the world, this next one, and this is the last one of the cycles, the aspects that we're going to talk about, but this is Neptune in Pisces. Now, Neptune is the planet that goes almost as slow as Pluto. Okay, so the cycles are 165 years. So this doesn't happen very often, right? Like Pluto in Capricorn does not happen often. But Neptune in Pisces, it will be there until 2026. Okay. 165-year cycle. The last time that Neptune was in Pisces was in 1848 to 1861. And guess what was going on right there leading up to the Civil War? Because it relates to economic collapse. In fact, in 1840, it was called the Hungry 40s. There was such financial difficulty at that time, huge racial tension that led up to the Civil War. Well, we see the racial tension everywhere, don't we? It's been going on for quite some time. So what does that mean for us? Well, Neptune in Pisces represents racial tension, and this is where this next one just blows my mind. It relates to collective insanity, the maddening crowd, the savior or salvation complex that says, just listen to us and do what we say, and we will save you. Blindly following like sheep, okay? And following out of fear. You can't blame them. They're scared to death. They believe the savior, the government, you know, the WHO, the the CDC, you know, they're believing all of this. If you just do what we say, we'll save you. Okay. So delusion, lies, manipulation, dissolving or breaking down of structure. So that has a lot to do with everything that's going on the planet right now, okay? And so, but on a positive note, with Neptune and Pisces, if you are one of those people who is conscious and awake, okay, you can wake up even more from unconscious states, pulling out of the collective insanity and the collective mind to think for oneself what truly resonates without fear. Okay? So this is what Neptune in Pisces is, what I believe is facilitating the Great Awakening. You know, the average person who watches mainstream media all the time, which is, you know, mostly lies and fake news, you know, they get caught up and riled up in this constant fear. But if you turn off the news and you start studying and researching positive things, spiritual things, then your fear dissipates. But as long as you're connected to the collective mind, and the collective insanity, you're just going to continue on in fear and stress and anxiety. I sent out my celestial update yesterday, and I talked about this, which is when we're in fear, when we're in anxiety, vitriol, hatred, we're in low frequency, third dimensional thinking and energy. And when you participate in it, you're bolstering, you're strengthening the 3D matrix. Okay? Most people don't even understand that that's what they're doing. Now, our goal and what's happening with the planet through all of this is the frequency on the planet is raising. We're pushing to get into the 5th dimensional realm. You can't do that by being in fear. It's blocking, your fear is blocking your ability to get answers. Okay? The 3rd dimensional realm is the realm of questions. You want to get into the 5th dimensional realm, which is the realm of answers. Okay? And we cannot get the answers. We just go around in circles and wallow around in stupidity from the 3rd dimensional world. Where has it gotten us? Look at where we are on the planet right now in 3rd dimensional energy. We've screwed ourselves.
Well, and there's another part of it is that we give away our power. Like when we lock ourselves in our house and we watch TV or we watch mainstream television, and it just, everything you see is just to instill terror and fear. You're going to die. Everything around you is crumbling. The world is coming to crap. Everything's going to and you're afraid of everything. So it's like, it works. And it's like a trance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And
it's crippling.
It's crippling. You got to turn off the media. You can't listen to that nonsense. And you have to go within. You know, the scriptures talk about, and it's in the Nag Hammadi, it's in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's in all kinds of stuff, that the kingdom of heaven is actually within us. We carry it. It's the light of Christ. That's the kingdom of heaven. And we need to start working in that realm, okay, and bolstering our frequency so that we can get up into the world of answers and stop wallowing in the world of questions and in the third dimensional realm, okay? And I want to tell you a little bit about something that came to me that I thought was very profound. It started in the mid 30s to the mid 40s, 1930s and 40s. And these are events that literally changed the course of the world in both positive and negative ways. The Great Depression leading up to World War II, Uranus was in Taurus then, like I mentioned before. And it was there from June of 34 to 8/41. And that's when, of course, the banks collapsed, not just in Europe, all over the place. This was a global depression as well. And war was declared in September of 1939 as Germany invaded Poland. And at this time of disruption on the planet, Saturn was conjunct Uranus, like I mentioned before. And this was part of a larger 44-year cycle back then as well. In 1941, the death camps were created and gassing began, and millions, 6 million Jews and millions more under Mussolini and Stalin were killed. Just eliminated. Horrible evil on the planet, darkness. And then the war ends in September of 1945. In the same year that the United States government literally created the nuclear bomb. The first testing of the nuclear bomb was in July of 1945 in the New Mexico desert up by Los Alamos. We had created a huge instrument of death. And even the guy who created it said, "Oh my God, what have we done?" And so we have this war, deaths of millions and millions of people. Everything was in flux and change, depression, no money. When you think back to the Great Depression, it's nothing. It's so much worse in so many ways than what we're going through now, and it was interesting too, if people are politically minded, that back then the tax rate on the wealthy was in the 70%. It was the wealthy that got us out of the Depression, and Roosevelt hiked up the tax rate on the wealthy. Isn't that interesting? And the wealthy now, most of them don't even pay taxes, like Bezos and all of these others. They don't even pay taxes. But those that do, it's what? 25, 26%? The inequity is startling. Okay, another thing that happened, and this is a little controversial, okay, but we're finding it more and more mainstream, what's happening with the aliens, okay? People are reporting, and they're reporting that the government has been aware of aliens for a long, long time. Well, as it turned out, in 1944, and you can find this information on the website called MUFON, M-U-F-O-N, okay? And people who have experiences with alien typically go to them and report. Now, I've got a client who had just the most fascinating experience with an alien, and I'm going to tell you about it. And this was only maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And 2 aliens came through her sliding door, just walked through the glass, and she wasn't able to move. And they stood at the end of her bed and were communicating with each other. They had little gadgets with them. They were scanning her. And then one of them said to the other, the younger one, apparently it was a younger, smaller one, said to the other, we can't use her. She is part of the armistice. And so they turned around and left. And apparently the government in 1944 signed an armistice with the aliens. And you can find that information out on MUFON. Now, some people may think it's crazy, but then it was in 1947 that there was the alien crash in Roswell, New Mexico. And that's been so documented. You know, people say, oh, it's fringe. It's no. And they actually found a dead alien, which they took in. So, you know, you can believe it if you want or not. But, you know, it's really kind of naive to think that we're the only planet in the entire universe that has life on it. I mean, that's just like, that reminds me of religions that say, we're the only way. You have to do things our way. It's the only way to get to heaven. No. Okay, so it's the same kind of mentality. Now, where the counterbalance came in is in 1945. The Nag Hammadi scrolls were found in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, by the Nile River, and in a cave. And those are considered the Gnostic Gospels. These are books that were written that were tossed out of the mainstream Bible that we have by Constantine. Constantine severely edited the Bible. Okay, they took out everything about astrology, reincarnation, and all of these other books in the Nag Hammadi scrolls. And then in 1947, they found the Dead Sea Scrolls up in the caves above Qumran, Israel. And the Essenes were a sect that lived in Qumran. They also were in Alexandria, Egypt, and up in Mount Carmel in Egypt and in Israel. And the Essenes were considered the keepers of light. They were the scribes. They were a secret society. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they were the mainstream ego-related sects of the day. But the Essenes were the scribes. They were the ones that wrote down the things that Jesus taught and other prophets and so on and so forth. And they kept that data. They, put it on scrolls. And so the Romans came because they didn't believe in what the Essenes were teaching or what was going on in Israel at the time. And they pretty much wiped out the Essenes, and the Essenes knew in advance it was coming. And so they hid all of these scrolls and writings up in the caves above Qumran. And I've actually seen the caves, and just marvelous information. In fact, the lady who channeled A Course in Miracles went to cave number 4 up above Qumran. It's a hard hike up there. And she stood there and looked up at that cave and started to weep. And she said, "This is the holiest place on earth." And of course, the Course in Miracles, she relates, was a channel from Jesus. So there are over 2,000 caves in that area. They're still finding stuff from those caves. Now, I say this as part of a counterbalance because the information and the truths found in Qumran and also Nag Hammadi give us so much more truth and information that has been withheld from us for thousands of years. And each time that a thing is found, or more are found, they put scholars on it. And they put like 7 scholars, and these guys are to put everything together and make sense of it. A lot of the scrolls had started to deteriorate. There were some inside of jars that were still sealed. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's the great Isaiah scroll that's 24 feet long. And that scroll is in a museum in Israel with glass all the way around it. You know, I've seen pictures of it, and it's set in such a way that if there were an earthquake or some devastating thing, it sinks into the ground, into a cement vault. It is so precious and in such good shape. You know, Isaiah was one of the main prophets of the New Testament. So anyway, the scrolls and the stuff that was found, you've got the book of Mary, the book of Jesus's childhood, the book of truth. I mean, the book of Thomas, the book of Philip. I mean, you can go on and on, the book of Mary, and get information that was withheld from us. Now, I have this one right here that I'm working on. This is called the Nag Hammadi Scriptures. This has all of them in here, okay? And it's so interesting to go through and to see things and read things that were withheld from us. And so now it's mainstream. Both the Dead Sea and the Nag Hammadi Scriptures are mainstream, and we can find them, we can buy them, we can start studying them and find practices and ways that we can increase and enhance our spirituality. This is not religion. This is spirituality, okay? Jesus was a Jew foremost. He was not a Christian. Christianity wasn't invented until 325 years after he died. Okay, so it is men that created Christianity. It is men who created religion. And I don't know about you, but my philosophy is I just want to connect. I don't want any middlemen. I want to just learn the truth and connect with Source. I want to dwell in the world of answers. So I tell you this to let you know that the things on the planet right now that are happening will change the course of the world. But we are given spiritual answers if we will just study them and find them. That we can find peace in our own hearts, okay? We don't have to get caught up in all of this stuff out there. We can go within, because that's where the kingdom of heaven is within each of us, okay? So, do you have any more questions, Misty?
Well, yeah, it's just I love that you were talking about that, because that's really, there's so many things we can do, but the ultimate thing we can do is reconnect to what we actually are. Like, and that's where we'll access, like you said, the realm of answers. Right. Like that we'll find our own way. And it's not even like what Wendy says or what I say or anything. It's that truly whatever's happening on the planet, like a lot of these big grand things that are happening, we don't have control over them. Like we have to go through them, right? What's part of, you know, the impacts that we're, but you know, through practices and through, I think really being gentle with ourselves and taking time to develop whatever those practices are. They can be these ancient practices, or you can make up your own. Like for me, a great practice is a walk in the park, like just something that slows you down, you know, gets you to breathe, gets you to connect with nature. Just connecting with nature is a powerful practice of reconnecting to what we actually are, because we are just nature. Right. And, you know, and nature is abundant, and nature, it like just gives. And like, so I think that is really important, that because we can hear all this negativity of what's happening and this shit that we have to go through. And like, God, do we really have to? But it's like, these are cycles. We can't break free of a cycle. Everything is part of a cycle. And so it's just empowering ourselves to go through these cycles and make the best choices. And you make the best choices when you have the inner work done, like when you're doing the inner work.
And peace of mind is the greatest success anyone can have is peace of mind. And that's what's really missing on the planet today. People are just frantic and have no peace of mind.
Yeah.
And you got to go inside. You got to get out into nature and into color and beauty and commune with God, your concept of God. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But
And that could be nature.
It could be nature.
Like
Okay?
that's where it's in everything and in all things. So absolutely. I know for myself, just my own experiences, that at the beginning of the lockdown and everything that happened, I was obsessed with news. I was like, I want to know what's going on. Like I want it. And then I started to it really impacted me. And it didn't put me in fear as far as like my life or anything like that. It put me in fear as far as my, that I might lose my freedom, that I might lose my own freedom to make my own choices with my body. I'll lose my freedom to be able to travel freely in the world. You know, just all of this stuff. Like for me, it wasn't that I'm going to die, because I know I've got an immune system that's really strong. And so I trust that. But for me, it was a loss of freedom, and watching the news and turning on, you know, Facebook and scouring it every day. It actually made me really angry, like mad that this can happen to us, and that we really don't have the control over these big things, and big corporate and big tech and big pharma and big all of this stuff. We don't like. And
Big
so
stuff.
like, yeah. And so it's like what you said, I just started to turn it off, and I'm like, oh my God, did it change? Because the only time it exists now, what's interesting, is when I turn on a device. If I turn it off and I'm not looking at those things all the time, it's like someone has to remind me. Like I'll have my friends and they'll be like, oh, did you see that thing about this? And I'm like, actually, no, I didn't see it. Like, you know, and it's good because because I'd rather just pursue my happiness and just stay as happy as possible and do the things that make me happy, because all of that other stuff only brings us down.
That's right. And it is the Great Awakening. Why? Because there's so much pain. People are waking up and recognizing this doesn't feel right. Oh, but they say that they'll save us. No, they're not going to save you.
When have they ever cared about us?
They have never cared.
Never.
Ever. Never. We got to wake up. When we're in pain, what's the message? Wake up. Find out what's going on. Connect. Connect. That's the most important thing. Connect with source. Whatever your concept of that source is, it doesn't matter. Connect with the divine. And then you will have peace of mind. And that is the measure of success. And remember that we are all eternal.
We're just an awesome eternal spirit having a moment in a meat suit.
That's right.
And it's a moment. Like it's just a moment.
It's just infinitesimal.
Yeah.
Because we live so many countless lives, not only in this star system, but in many other star systems, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So much more out there that we have, that we're learning, but we're learning it. Now, as an example, you know, I had thought that astrology was between 2,000 and 4,000 years old. But now they're coming up with archaeological finds with astrological symbols that date clear back 20,000 years ago. These archaeological finds are giving us so much more information. You know, when people say, oh, astrology, excuse me?
Yeah, there's some, if you want to actually get a lot, this is recommended. I've been cracking out on this. It's on Gaia, which is its own little like app, but they have their own programming called It's Gaia. And Greg Braden has a series called Missing Links. But because he brings all the science in. So it's not just like, oh, it's not just all spiritual talk. It's actually about like a lot of what you're talking about, the cycles and these cycles of time energetically, planetarily, and how they're impacting, and also the convergence of several time cycles happening right now at the same time. And not just that, but all like just our human history and just all these missing elements, you know, it's so if you want to dive into that and just learn instead of, you know, watching the news,
Yeah.
go learn something, like go watch, get some interesting apps, you know, instead of just Netflix, like fill your brain with powerful information. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's out there.
You know, it's really interesting too, because now I lost my train of thought. I was going to say, oh, shoot, it's gone. Well, that's what you get when you're 71, okay?
And it blows my mind. That's my mom, 71. It's kind of awesome. But you guys, so listen, we don't want to keep you, but hopefully this was a great conversation for you, gave you some insight, teach you a little bit about what's happening. What's up?
What I was going to say is, you know, if we all stopped belonging to political parties, if we stopped belonging to anything that is restricting and controversial, and we just stopped supporting them, they'd go away and we could start something new, because they're all corrupt. There's neither political party is honest. They're corrupt. They support money interests, and that's the big thing. They help out their guys. You know, it's a good old boys network, whether it's Democrat or Republican. You know,
it doesn't really matter. I figure, like, let's just start the party of just being nice.
That's right.
Like, can we just be nice? Nice to each other, nice to the planet. Because I know love is hard, because it's hard to love everything and all the things. That's a little altruistic. I know that. But I do know that we can actually be kind and we can be nice. And I actually think that's a great way to start. And that's why I even say, a lot of times what I say is you got to start also by being kind to yourself. So really pay attention to what you're allowing into your brain, what thoughts, what things you're believing about things. If you're in fear, what are you afraid of? And ask yourself those questions. And what am I afraid of? What is it that I'm afraid of? And is it working on you? And then do your own research, because that's what frees me too, is that when I do my own research and I find out what other answers are really out there, it's like, oh, okay, I see where I've been lied to, and I see how I've been manipulated, and I see how and it takes a little bit from your ego to admit that, to be like, wow, I got suckered. Wow. Like, nobody wants to get suckered. Like, that's an awful feeling, to feel like you believed something and it let you down. And you're like, wait a minute, I put my faith in that. So you have to kind of put your ego aside sometimes and just let your brain open up a bit and go, there's more than one way to look at this. There's more than, you know, it's important to, and to open your mind up to looking at it and having conversations with people that may not agree with you, and see what happens.
And it is all about perspective, but there are things behind it that people need to understand. You can't take what you see at face value on media, because they're owned and controlled by a few conglomerates that tell them what they can say and what they can't. And if they're going to say something that messes up with their control, they're going to refuse to allow them to say it. And that's just the way it is. And so everything is manipulated and contrived to make sure they keep their power.
Yeah. Well, and it's clearly and obviously it is there's not just an agenda, but a, what do you call it? With everyone saying the same thing, there's a, like a script, like there's a.
Yeah. And they've actually done that. They did a thing on YouTube where they had 50 channels, and they recorded every one of them saying exactly the same thing. That was
no, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's totally crazy.
But anyway,
but I just, I wanted to let people know. So you guys, that's general information on globally what's impacting all of us. But if you really want to go deep and you really want to go, like, this is what's awesome, is that my mom offers personal readings, so she can tell you how all this is actually impacting you personally as well. And not just that, but what I love about the way that my mom does astrology is it's very empowering. She'll teach you and show you the blueprint of who you are and the tools and things that you have inside of you, and how to deal with the things using your own strengths to overcome what's happening in your life, and give you timelines and kind of how long things are going to be lasting. And it's great to ask questions. So if you're interested in doing a reading with her, Mom, what information? You can also add it in the link. There should be.
Yeah. Just you know, I need your birth data, of course, accurate date, time, and place of birth, where you currently live, that kind of thing. And then the reading, the full life reading, which I think is the place everyone should start, is like an hour and a half to 2 hours of just concentrated information for you that of course is recorded and so forth. And you know, I give all kinds of data and all kinds of stuff I send you. I get very generous, and I lose track of time. Then I look at the clock and, oh, I got another reading in 5 minutes. But it's fun to talk, you know, it's fun to discuss all this stuff.
Well,
You know,
that's what's up when you're dealing with someone that loves astrology and is an avid student and has had her nose in it, mastering it for years. So it's fun. Yeah, it is fun.
And the other thing, and Misty and I are going to do another video here about the Akashic records, because that's something else that's very important and that keeps you and helps you get to that fifth dimensional realm once you learn the protocols and the way to get those answers. So we'll be putting out another video about that too, to help you on the spiritual side.
Yeah, because it's, hey, we all need as much help as we can get.
Yes,
we need as much help. So anyways, thanks, Mom. That was awesome. And you guys share with your friends, anyone you think that might benefit from this and hearing this information, share. And again, if you want a reading, contact Mom. Your email address, Wendy at
twixtearthandsky.com. Twixt, TWIXT, earth, and sky.com. That's my website is twixtearthandsky.com.
Yeah, and you can check out all the great stuff she does. So anyways, thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Guys.